Like Keith Porter told us in the interview that I did with him a couple months ago, he absolutely thinks that this could be her MVP season in just her second year.
It goes without saying that Caitlin Clark had a rookie season for the ages. And based on what we've seen this offseason with the Fever loading up in free agency and Caitlin loading up on gym time and muscle milk, this is going to be a breakout year for Caitlin and the Fever. And now that the dust has settled and the draft is over and we're less than a month from tip-off, the predictions are rolling in. And shocker, they're all over the place. Will the Fever win it all? Will Caitlin be MVP? These are the two questions that matter because Caitlin and the Fever are the most watched player and team in the league. Period. There are many who want them to succeed and shut up the haters, and then there are the haters who would rather see the WNBA fail without Caitlin than have it thrive with her leading the way. And with that said, with the predictions, we're already starting to see the preloaded excuse. That's right, the season hasn't started, and the media is already making up things to diminish Caitlin's MVP award before she's won it. You can already hear it. It's just hype. She didn't really earn it. The excuse train is warming up, and it reeks. Let's get into these predictions, and a hilariously flawed hot take from, you guessed it, an ESPN analyst. Plus, a few key factors that most of them are completely missing, factors that could push the Fever to go all the way. But first, like this video if you've got Caitlin winning MVP, and drop a basketball in the comments if you think the Fever are championship ready.
I am really excited, and I didn't come here for the spotlight. I didn't come here to have more eyes. I came here to win.
Okay, when it comes to the Indiana Fever, the hype has never been bigger. This isn't just the most anticipated season in Fever history, it's the most anticipated season for any WNBA team ever. The level of attention on this franchise right now is unprecedented. We're talking wall-to-wall media coverage, every road game will be packed with Fever fans, and they're getting more national broadcasts than any team in the league ever. There have never been more eyes on a WNBA team. And that hype, it's been earned. The Fever had a monster offseason. They didn't just add talent, they added proven winners.
20-point game. DeWanna Bonner has never scored 40 in a game. She could do it right there! 41!
They just have to be more consistent, especially on the defensive end.
And Natasha Howard having her way tonight.
All-stars and champions like DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, and Sydney Colson came on board. Not to mention spark plug Sophie Cunningham, who'll be there to defend Caitlin, unlike her team last year, who just kind of stood around when she got decked.
But what irritates me is that no one came to Caitlin Clark's defense in that moment.
Yeah, that's not happening this year. Caitlin's got the league on her back, and we can't have people taking her out at the knees. Anyway, these are veterans who know how to win, how to compete, and most importantly, how to handle the pressure that comes with a spotlight this big. But probably the biggest shakeup was at coach.
We won't get this again. There's no saving. There's no conserving. You leave everything that you have out there on the floor.
They moved on from Christie's sides and brought in Stephanie White, a coach with championship experience, sharp X's and O's, and the kind of leadership presence that can take this team to the next level.
New Fever head coach Stephanie White returns to Indiana with one of the most legendary basketball resumes in the history of the sport.
White knows how to manage a roster full of big personalities and big expectations, and that's exactly what this group needs. And the sportsbooks agree that she'll have a huge impact. More on that in a minute. But let's be real. Everything starts and ends with Caitlin Clark.
Channel defense by the Sparks fans. 6 on the shot clock. Clark, a deep three!
Good interior passing, but Indiana's got to stop letting the ball get into the paint. They've got to keep it out.
Clark, step back, hits a three!
She's the face of the franchise, the face of the league. The reason why the Indiana Fever went from rebuilding bottom feeders to one of the most talked about teams in sports. Caitlin isn't just a star, she's a movement. She's the player who sells out arenas in minutes, breaks jersey sales records, and draws millions of viewers for a preseason game. Just wait, it's going to happen. And now, with a stronger roster and a more experienced coach around her, she's about to unlock a whole new level. The Fever are deeper, smarter, hungrier. But the engine of it all? Still Caitlin Clark. As she goes, so goes the league.
That can discourage Alyssa Thomas from making some of her great passes.
No one picks up Clark, he cans the three!
That was the Fever in the playoffs, a place they hadn't been since 2016 until Caitlin arrived. Now, I'm not going to run through all of Caitlin Clark's stats. You've seen them. You already know what she did, but the turnaround of the Fever franchise is the real story, and why these predictions I'll get to in a minute are either on or way off.
Yeah, sorry, they were better than the Sun. So after the first 10 games, I know when you look at the standings, that has to be taken into account, but after they figured it out, they were the 4th best team in the WNBA. They did better than the Storm, they did better than the Sun.
After starting the season 1-8, Caitlin, and by extension the entire Indiana Fever, flipped the switch. They went on a tear, locked in, and finished the regular season at 20-20, punching their ticket to the playoffs. It wasn't just a bounce back, it was a full-on resurgence. And along the way, Caitlin was dropping MVP-level performances like it was nothing. Caitlin finished 4th in MVP voting as a rookie, and now, after her first real offseason to rest, reload, and refine her game, she's coming back jacked, locked in, and ready to light it up. MVP, championship, both are on the table in 2025. So you'd think the momentum from how the Fever closed last season, the massive offseason additions, and the fact that we've barely scratched the surface of Caitlin's potential, all of that would be reflected in the preseason rankings. Well, not exactly. As you'd expect, the rankings are all over the place. Some of them are fair, while some others are, to put it nicely, playing it really safe. Let's start with the Fever's championship predictions. Fansided recently dropped their preseason power rankings, and they've got Indiana sitting squarely in the middle of the pack. That's right, 6th. Barely a playoff team. No top 3 spot. No real threat. Just average. But what really pushes this over the edge? It's who they put ahead of them. And yeah, it's going to raise some eyebrows.
They added experience into Juan Bonner and Tash Hare, as well as re-signing Kelsey Mitchell. The remaining core of last year's team in Clark, Aaliyah Boss, and Lexi Hull will have mentorship from these players. The big upgrade was the hiring of Stephanie White, but expect Fever to continue to put pieces together this season, inching closer to full potential as a full team with a Clark lean team. 6. You think the Seattle Storm? The Seattle Storm weren't even better than the Fever last year.
Now, if you look at the odds makers, they're a lot more bullish on the Fever. Most betting markets have Indiana listed as either the 3rd or 4th favorite to win the WNBA championship this season, which makes sense if you've been paying attention. The talent, the momentum, the ticket demand, the national broadcasts, it's all there. And then you've got a few voices in the WNBA media space who are actually going even further. Some believe the Fever aren't just a top 3 team, they're potentially the 2nd best, or even the best team heading into 2025.
With a new coach and Coach Stephanie White, a lot of the games that the Indiana Fever team lost last year were close games that they weren't able to pull out at the end. A lot of that comes down to coaching. Now you have a veteran coach in Coach Stephanie White. You have seen her be so involved with her players. Also, none of these players played overseas this season. Some of them played in Unrivaled, some of them played in AU. They were all here, and a lot of them were in Indiana training all summer. There are just so many things from what we know about this team. And again, I know that I have not seen this team on the court together. We don't know how the chemistry is going to shake out, but seeing what they had last year and now seeing what they have this year, I have them shaking out at the end of the season being that number 2 seed in the WNBA. And if they can get it together quick enough, they might inch their way into that number 1 seed.
Now, Rachel made a couple of really important points here. First, the coaching change. Last year, you could just feel it. From Caitlin's early comments about not really getting much advice from anyone, to her off-season remarks subtly pointing to a lack of strategy, to the visible on-court frustration. It all painted a picture. The Fever weren't succeeding because of Christy Sides. They were succeeding in spite of her.
Indiana Fever's coaching staff is destroying Caitlin Clark's offensive game. This one is just so beyond defensive. Caitlin Clark blows by the defender off a pump fake right here. So what is that Fever player doing? The Fever have no idea what they're doing with Caitlin Clark off ball screens.
That's why the coaching swap was the first domino to fall. Look, I'm not going to say Caitlin Clark is a coach killer, but let's be real. When you've got the hottest player in the game and the entire sport is watching, you better have a coach who can match that level. Otherwise, it's a disaster waiting to happen. Second, Rachel brought up something that almost no one else is talking about, the impact of players staying stateside. Like Caitlin, most of the Fever's core didn't go overseas during the offseason. That means they're not coming in burnt out or jet-lagged. They've been in Indianapolis, training together, building chemistry, building cohesion. That kind of continuity matters, especially in a league with so much off-season movement. It could mean the Fever start hot and stay consistent when other teams are still getting their footing. And then there's one more thing to consider, something that could take this entire narrative and flip it on its head.
And another thing that is going for the Fever that's going to make them a really hard team to play is that they turn every home game and every away game into a home game. That home crowd follows them wherever they go. Every single Indiana Fever game is going to be played on a big stage. All of the teams that they are playing against, they are moving them to other arenas. The Indiana Fever are preparing themselves through the regular season for the big stage when it comes to the playoffs.
Rachel calls it preparation, and she's right, but I'd go one step further. It's also swagger. The Fever are the rock stars of the WNBA right now. On the road, they're playing in front of packed arenas with fans screaming their names, holding up signs, and lining up outside hours before tip-off. That kind of spotlight doesn't just build chemistry, it builds pride, confidence, and yes, swagger. They know who they are. They know what they bring. And that kind of environment, it absolutely prepares you for the big stage. Because here's the truth. Every single team is going to bring their A game when they face the Fever. No off nights, no freebies. Every game will be a battle, and nearly every one will be nationally televised, which means players across the league are going to treat it like their own personal all-star showcase.
But this notion that the rest of the WNBA is being slighted, I just think is counterintuitive because the rest of the WNBA is being boosted. I don't know how many different ways I have to say that. I mean, Nafisa Collier, as much as she might have a beef with not being promoted enough, is a much bigger name now than she was this time last year.
Honestly, this is fantastic for the WNBA. The intensity is going to be sky high, and we're going to get some of the best games we've seen in years. But it's also a huge advantage for the Fever, because by the time the playoffs roll around, this team will be battle-tested. They won't be surprised by the pressure. They'll have already faced it every single night. Now let's talk about the main rock star herself, Caitlin Clark. She's got the team, she's got the rest, and judging by the off-season footage, she's got the pipes too. Stronger, sharper, and more prepared than ever. All signs point to her picking up right where she left off, only now with more weapons around her and a full off-season to level up. And here's what's interesting. So far, both the public and the markets are actually more bullish on Caitlin Clark winning MVP than the Fever winning the championship. FanDuel currently has her as the favorite, edging out even A'ja Wilson, who's coming off a dominant 2024 season. Most odds makers have Caitlin at least second, and that's with just one season under her belt. And Rachel? Just like she's high on the Fever's potential, she's just as bullish on Caitlin. She sees the vision, the momentum, the talent, the exposure. All of it is lining up.
And now Caitlin Clark is surrounded by not just a couple great players, the entire squad is finally full. So my prediction going into this season is that teams are not going to be able to face guard, to double team, to pick up full court like they were last year, because there are so many other threats on the court with this Indiana Fever team. And I think with having a coach like Stephanie White, she's gonna have a better system, a better scheme to break some of these defenses that they didn't have last year. So I think all of this put together is just a perfect storm, a perfect recipe for Caitlin Clark. Like Keith Porter told us in the interview that I did with him a couple months ago, he absolutely thinks that this could be her MVP season in just her second year in the WNBA. That is why she is my choice for the 2025 WNBA MVP.
The same reasons Rachel favors the Fever to be a top-tier team, a full supporting cast, better coaching, and actual team cohesion are exactly why she believes Caitlin has the best shot to win MVP. And she's not alone in that thinking. By the way, if you're curious how confident the betting markets are in this Fever glow-up, the sportsbooks have Stephanie White as the overwhelming favorite to win Coach of the Year. So yeah, everything is lining up. A veteran coach, a rebuilt roster, a rested, stronger, more experienced Caitlin Clark. All the ingredients for an absolutely dominant season. But of course, not everyone sees it that way. Fansided dropped their MVP rankings, and while having Caitlin at number 4 isn't outrageous, it's who they ranked ahead of her that really turns heads.
The thing is, there is a weird situation where Caitlin Clark wins MVP. There is no way Stewie wins MVP.
There are definitely some folks out there who are reluctant to put Caitlin in the top 3, choosing instead to place her behind established stars like Breanna Stewart or A'ja Wilson. And look, fair enough, those are proven MVPs with rings and resumes to match. But even those more cautious takes admit something important. Caitlin absolutely has a real shot. Even in the same breath as they rank her 4th, they concede that all the pieces are in place for her to surpass those names and make a serious MVP run. So overall, the media, at least the ranking side of it, is actually being fair for once. It's almost like they know this isn't a long shot. Caitlin Clark could very realistically win MVP this season, and it wouldn't be a surprise. And this is where the excuses start creeping in. Because once it becomes clear that she might actually win it, some people start shifting gears. Cue the preemptive dismissals, the "it's just hype," the media bias arguments, all the ways people try to downplay what could be a historic season.
Today, Elle Duncan, folks, Elle Duncan. It seems as if ESPN has given her the script for the 2025 WNBA seasons.
Remember Elle Duncan? The hot take machine who said this about Fever fans.
The new fans are sucking the life out of the WNBA right now. It's just the truth.
Well, Elle Duncan thinks Caitlyn's got a chance to win MVP, but if she does, it's not solely because of her performance on the court. According to Elle, there's another reason. Get ready for this.
Expect A'ja Wilson to be A'ja Wilson again this year? Yes. But I also know there is such a thing as voter fatigue. They don't like giving anybody MVP 3 times in a row. They barely like to do it 2 times in a row, let alone 3 times in a row. I just don't see it, simply because of voter fatigue.
That's right. She claims it'll come down to voter fatigue, that voters simply won't want to give A'ja Wilson her 3rd straight MVP, and that Caitlyn could slip in because people are just tired of voting for A'ja. There's one problem with that theory, though. A'ja Wilson didn't win MVP twice in a row. Breanna Stewart won it in 2023.
A'ja Wilson hasn't won MVP twice in a row. What are you talking about? What is she talking about?
Let's be clear. A'ja just reclaimed the MVP, and did so after putting up an absolutely dominant season. There's no such thing as fatigue when you're on a 1-win streak. If voters were tired of her, she wouldn't have won it last year. So to float the idea that Caitlin Clark could win only because voters are avoiding A'ja, that's not analysis, it's deflection. And look, Elle might have misspoken about Asia's MVP awards, but the concept behind it is what matters. If Caitlin wins, there's a reason other than she earned it. This is exactly the kind of preloaded excuse we're going to keep hearing if Caitlyn continues to dominate. The same folks who downplay her impact and question her fan base are now laying the groundwork to discredit her in advance, just in case she wins MVP. Because let's be real, if Caitlin Clark wins MVP, it won't just be a win for her. It'll be a devastating blow to the people who've spent the last year trying to undermine everything she's accomplished. All the tired narratives.
She was a white girl from the middle of America. And so she represented a whole lot to a lot of people.
I still don't think she's dominating, but she's a different player than she was in the first half.
All of it gets torched the moment she hoists that trophy. Because if Caitlyn wins MVP, she wins it on merit. Not because someone else was snubbed, not because voters were bored, but because she was flat out the best player in the league. An MVP award says one thing, loud and clear. She earned it. Every bucket, every assist, every win, no spin, no qualifiers, just dominance. And if the WNBA is smart and finally leans into this moment, it could be looking at the start of its own Jordan era. Caitlin Clark could be the one who bridges the gap between hardcore fans and mainstream audiences. The one who turns casuals into lifers. The one who finally launches the league into a new tier of cultural relevance. But we already know what's coming. If the Fever rack up the wins, it's a super team. If Caitlyn wins awards, she had help. If she breaks another viewership record, it's just Middle America flexing for her and ignoring the rest of the league because they're bad people. The excuses are already being loaded into the chamber, ready to be fired off on X, and sports shows the minute she succeeds. But here's the reality. Millions of people will still be tuning in. Kids will still be wearing her jersey. Heck, everyone will be. It's the 2nd most sold jersey in the NBA behind Steph Curry. And yeah, all those NBA arenas will still be sold out. At the end of the day, Caitlyn, like Sophie said earlier in this video, is here to win. She wants a championship. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the jealous media and players respond when it happens. They already call her the scheduling conflict. But perhaps they better start calling her Neo because she is the one. And eventually, the Hatelins will need to get used to it. If you're still here, drop a basketball emoji in the comments to say hi. Thanks for watching. See you next time.